Hi guys, gals, and non-binary pals. So I was actually looking at my views on my videos, and I was just surprised pleasantly that I know that my close friends watch it. But I was like, oh, even if I account for that, there's still more people watching than I thought. Which thank you guys for watching. If you could comment sometimes so I know that you're there and not just avoid, that would be cool. But thanks for watching. I realized I forgot my little bunny in the last video, so had to make sure I had it. And also, my lip color today is from Elf. It's this color. It's called Summer Nights. So, all right. This is kind of a long chapter, so get ready, folks. Okay. 12. The Stranger in the Field. To come to the end of a time of anxiety and fear, to feel the cloud that hung over us lift and disperse, the cloud that dulled the heart and made happiness no more than a memory. This, at least, is one joy that must have been known by almost every living creature. Here is a boy who is waiting to be punished, but then, unexpectedly, he finds that his fault has been overlooked or forgiven, and at once the world reappears in brilliant colors, full of delightful prospects. Here is a soldier who is waiting, with a heavy heart, to suffer and die in battle. But suddenly the luck has changed. There is news. The war is over, and everyone bursts out singing. He will go home after all. The sparrows in the ploughland were crouching in terror of the kestrel, but she has gone, and they fly pell-mell up the hedgerow, frisking, chattering, and perching where they will. The bitter winter had all the country in its grip. The hares on the down, stupid and torpid with cold, were resigned to sinking further and further into the freezing heart of snow and silence. But now, who would have dreamed it? The thaw is trickling. The great tit is ringing his bell from the top of a bare lime tree. The earth is scented, and the hares bound and skip in the warm wind. Hopelessness and reluctance are blown away like a fog, and the dumb solitude where they crept, a place desolate as a crack in the ground, opens like a rose and stretches to the hills and the sky. The tired rabbits fed and basked in the sunny meadow as though they had come no further than from the bank of the edge of the nearby copse. The heather and the stumbling darkness were forgotten as though the sunrise had melted them. Bigwig and Hawkbit chased each other through the long grass. Speedwell jumped over the little brook that ran down the middle of the field, and when Acorn tried to follow him and fell short, Silver joked with him as he scrambled out and rolled him in a patch of dead oak leaves until he was dry. As the sun rose higher, shortening the shadows and drawing the dew from the grass, most of the rabbits came wandering back to the sun-flecked shade among the cow parsley along the edge of the ditch. Here, Hazel and Fiver were sitting with Dandelion under a flowering wild cherry. The white petals spun down around them, covering the grass and speckling their fur, while 30 feet above a thrush sang, cherry dew, knee deep, knee deep, knee deep. Well, this is the place all right, isn't it, Hazel? Said Dandelion lazily. I suppose we'd better start having a look around along the banks soon, though I must say I'm in no particular hurry. But I've got an idea it may be going to rain before much longer. Fiver looked as though he were about to speak, but then shook his ears and turned to nibbling at a dandelion. That looks like a good bank along the edge of the trees up there, answered Hazel. What do you say, Fiver? Shall we go up there now, or shall we wait just a bit longer? Fiver hesitated and then replied, just as you think, Hazel. Well, there's no need to do any serious digging, is there? Said Bigwig. That sort of thing's all right for does, but not for us. Sean, do boy rabbits not dig burrows? Is that only a doe thing? I don't think so, but I'm not sure, 'cause I remember my rabbit used to dig when we had him, but I'm not an expert. I feel like you would probably know better than me. Let me know, okay? Thanks. Still, we'd better make 1 or 2 scrapes, don't you think? Said Hazel. Something to give us shelter at a pinch. Let's go up to the copse and look around. We might as well take our time and make quite sure where we'd like to have them. We don't want to have to do the work twice. Yes, that's the style, said Bigwig. And while you're doing that, I'll take Silver and Buckthorn there and have a run down the fields beyond, just to get the lie of the land and make sure there isn't anything dangerous. The three explorers set off beside the brook, while Hazel led the other rabbits across the field and up to the edge of the woodland. They went slowly along the foot of the bank, pushing in and out of the clumps of red campion and ragged robin. From time to time, or from time to time, one or other would begin to scrape in the gravelly bank or venture a little way in among the trees and nut bushes to scuffle in the leaf mold. And after they had been searching and moving on quietly for some time, they reached a place from which they could see that the field below them broadened out. Both on their own side and opposite, the wood edges curved outward, away from the brook. They also noticed the roofs of a farm, but some distance off. Hazel stopped, and they gathered round him. I don't think it makes much difference where we do a bit of scratching, he said. It's all good, so far as I can see. Not the slightest trace of Elil, no scent or tracks or droppings. That seems unusual, but it may be just that the home Warren attracted more Elil than the other places. Anyway, we ought to do well here. Now I'll tell you what seems the right thing to me. Let's go back a little way between the woods and have a scratch near that oak tree there, just by that white patch of stitchwort. I know the farm's a long way off, but there's no point in being nearer to it than we need. And if we're fairly close to the wood opposite, the trees will help to break the wind a bit in winter. Splendid, said Blackberry. It's going to cloud over, don't you see? Rain before sunset, and we'll be in shelter. Well, let's make a start. Oh, look! There's Bigwig coming back along the bottom, and the other two with him. The three rabbits were running down the bank of the stream, and had not yet seen Hazel and the others. They paused below them into the narrower part of the field between the two copses, and it was not until Acorn had been sent halfway down the slope to attract their attention that they turned and came up to the ditch. I don't think there's going to be much to trouble us here, Hazel, said Bigwig. The farm's a good way away, and the fields between don't show any signs of Elil at all. There's a man track. In fact, there are several, and they look as though they were used a good deal. Scents fresh, and there are the ends of those little white sticks that they burn in their mouths. But that's all for the best, I reckon. We keep away from the men, and the men frighten the Elil away. Why do the men come, do you suppose? Asked Fiver. Who knows why men do anything? They may drive cows or sheeps in the field, or cut wood in the copses. What does it matter? I'd rather dodge a man than a stoat or a fox. Well, that's fine, said Hazel. You found out a lot, Bigwig, and all to the good. We were just going to make some scrapes along the bank there. We'd better start. The rain won't be long now, if I know anything about it. Buck rabbits on their own seldom or never go in for serious digging. This is the natural job of a doe making a home for her litter before they are born, and then her buck helps her. All the same, solitary bucks, if they can find no existing holes to make use of, will sometimes scratch out short tunnels for shelter, although it is not work that they tackle at all seriously. During the morning, the digging proceeded in a light-hearted and intermittent way. The bank on each side of the oak tree was bare, and consisted of a light, gravelly soil. There were several false starts and fresh choices, but by knee-frith they had 3 scrapes of a sort. Hazel, watching, lent help here and there and encouraged the others. Every so often he slipped back to look out over the field and make sure that all was safe. Only Fiver remained solitary. He took no part in the digging, but squatted on the edge of the ditch, fidgeting backward and forward, sometimes nibbling, and then starting up suddenly as though he could hear some sound in the wood. After speaking to him once or twice and receiving no reply, Hazel thought it best to let him alone. The next time he left the digging, he kept away from Fiver and sat looking at the bank, as though entirely concerned with the work. A little after knee-frith, the sky clouded over thickly, the light grew dull, and they could smell rain approaching from the west. The blue tit that had been swinging on a bramble, singing "Hi ho and go and get another bit of moss," stopped his acrobatics and flew into the wood. Hazel was just wondering whether it would be worthwhile starting a side passage to link Bigwig's hole to Dandelion's when he felt a stamp of warning from somewhere close by. He turned quickly. It was Fiver who had stamped, and he was now staring intently across the field. Beside a tussock of grass a little way outside the opposite copse, a rabbit was sitting and gazing at them. Its ears were erect, and it was evidently giving them the full attention of sight, smell, and hearing. Hazel rose on his hind legs, paused, and then sat back on his haunches, in full view. The other rabbit remained motionless. Hazel, never taking his eyes off it, heard 3 or 4 of the others coming up behind him. After a moment he said, "Blackberry?" "He's down in the hole," replied Pipkin. "Go and get him." Still, the strange rabbit made no move. The wind rose, and the long grass began to flutter and ripple in the dip between them. From behind, Blackberry said, "You wanted me, Hazel?" "I'm going over to speak to that rabbit," said Hazel. "I want you to come with me." "Can I come?" asked Pipkin. "No, Halaru. We don't want to frighten him. 3's too many." "Be careful," said Buckthorn, as Hazel and Blackberry set off down the slope. "He may not be the only one." At several points the brook was narrow, not much wider than a rabbit run. They jumped it and went up the opposite slope. "Just behave as if we were back at home," said Hazel. "I don't see how it can be a trap, and anyway, we can always run." As they approached, the other rabbit kept still and watched them intently. He could see now that he was a big fellow, sleek and handsome. His fur shone, and his claws and teeth were in perfect condition. Nevertheless, he did not seem aggressive. On the contrary, there was a curious, rather unnatural gentleness about the way in which he waited for them to come nearer. They stopped and looked at him from a little distance. "I don't think he's dangerous," whispered Blackberry. "I'll go up to him first if you'd like." "We'll both go," replied Hazel. But at this moment the other rabbit came towards them of his own accord. He and Hazel touched their noses together, sniffing and questioning silently. The stranger had an unusual smell, but it was certainly not unpleasant. Okay, I'm going to stop here because this is a pretty long chapter. So that's it, folks. See you later.